Have you ever walked into a room full of people and still felt completely alone? Not the kind of alone that silence brings, but a loneliness that lives deep inside your chest, where no sound ever reaches. A quiet ache that follows you even when you're laughing, even when someone holds your hand, even when they say they love you. It's the kind of loneliness that doesn't go away just because you're not physically alone. And if you're being honest, maybe you felt that way for a very long time. This video is about that kind of loneliness, the kind no one talks about. The kind that hides behind a strong smile and a full calendar. The kind that builds walls between you and the people who swear they care. The kind that tells you, you're different, you don't belong, you'll always feel like this. But what if that's not the truth? What if that deep ache wasn't a curse, but a message? What if the loneliness you're feeling isn't proof that something is wrong with you, but a sacred invitation to come home to yourself? That's what we're exploring here. Through the lens of Carl Jung's insight, and more importantly, through your lived pain, we're going to walk into the heart of this loneliness. And we won't just analyze it. We're going to feel it, understand it, and maybe begin to outgrow it. Not by escaping it, but by listening to what it's trying to say, because you're not broken. And you're definitely not alone. If you've ever felt like you're too much, or not enough, or just different, this is for you. If you've given your love and ended up empty, if you've spent years trying to be seen and still feel invisible, I see you now, and I hope you'll stay. Take a breath. Get still. Let your shoulders drop. This isn't just something to watch, it's something to feel. Let's walk through it together. If this already speaks to you, gently tap that like button. It helps this reach others who need it. And if you want to walk this healing journey more deeply, consider subscribing. You won't be walking it alone. There's a moment in almost every life when the loneliness becomes unbearable. You can't quite explain it, but it catches you suddenly, or slowly, and begins to wrap itself around your chest like cold fog. You try to distract yourself. You work harder. You keep yourself busy. You scroll through highlight reels. You say yes to plans you don't want, conversations you don't feel, and people who don't really see you. But at the end of the day, when the noise fades and the lights dim, something hollow echoes back inside of you. It's in that quiet place where there's no one left to impress or pretend for, that the truth begins to whisper. You don't feel connected. You don't feel known. You don't feel safe. And the worst part? You're tired of pretending you're fine. This isn't about needing more friends. It's not about needing a relationship or being part of some perfect tribe. It's about something far deeper. It's about being met. But maybe you were never really met. Maybe your loneliness didn't begin last year, or last month, or even last night. Maybe it started much earlier, back when your world was still small and soft, and the people around you didn't know how to hold the whole truth of who you were. Maybe you had to shrink. Maybe you had to be pleasing, or strong, or quiet, or funny just to feel safe. And in doing so, you abandoned something sacred, your own presence. Carl Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." That line cuts deep, doesn't it? Because it means loneliness isn't about numbers. It's about depth. It's about resonance. It's about whether the words you speak are actually heard, and whether the parts of you that ache are actually seen. And so, slowly, over years and years, you begin to carry a quiet despair. Will I ever truly be met? You start to accept surface connections as enough. You start to convince yourself that maybe you're just one of those people who'll never be fully understood. And part of you gives up. But another part of you, the deeper part, keeps hoping. That part is still alive, and it brought you here. So if you're wondering why you feel the way you do, why despite the people around you, despite the achievements, the milestones, the smiles, you still feel like something essential is missing, maybe it's because the truest part of you is still waiting to come home. That isn't your fault. It's not a flaw. It's a map, because sometimes loneliness isn't a punishment. It's a compass. And the pain, that sharp, restless ache inside your ribs, it's not trying to break you. It's trying to wake you, to bring you back to the places you abandoned within yourself. And here's the thing that's hard to hear but honest. Escaping loneliness doesn't begin with someone else reaching in. It begins with you reaching back, not to the version of yourself that coped, but to the version you hid, the one you silenced so long ago just to survive, the one who still believes in wonder, who still wants to be held, who still longs to be understood without needing to explain. That version of you, the original you, is still here, and they are not asking for a fix. They are asking for your attention. So what if just for a moment you stopped trying to fill the void and instead sat beside it? What if the emptiness isn't an enemy, but a mirror? What would it show you? If you were to look closely into that mirror, the one hidden in your silence, you might see something that doesn't look like pain at first. It might look like a child, not necessarily small in body, but innocent in being, vulnerable, still reaching for something they never quite received. They're not asking for attention in a loud, needy way. They're just waiting, quietly, hoping, holding out their hands to a world that never really understood their language. And slowly they began to pull those hands back. This is where it begins, because loneliness, at its root, isn't about the people who left, or the ones who never came. It's about the parts of us that we've exiled, so we could survive, so we could be good, so we could belong. And now, years later, even though the world has changed and you're no longer in those early spaces, you still carry the same patterns. You still armor yourself. You still wonder if you're too sensitive, too intense, too complicated. And yet, what if the truth is this? The depth of your loneliness is the depth of your capacity to connect. It means your heart wasn't made to be numb. It was made to feel. And somewhere along the line, you were made to feel ashamed of that. But here's the secret no one tells you. The people who feel the most alone are often the ones who feel the most. Period. You feel deeply. You think deeply. You love deeply. And the tragedy is that no one ever met you at that depth, so you began to float, perform, smile, blend in. But inside, a part of you knew, this isn't real, this isn't love, this isn't me. That knowing is what brought you here. That quiet rebellion inside you. The one that refuses to let you numb out forever. The one that says, I deserve to be known. Not in pieces, not in roles, but fully. But before someone else can truly know you, you have to turn back toward yourself, not the edited self, not the curated self, the one beneath that. That's the hardest thing in the world, isn't it? To sit in the silence and face the raw, trembling places you've spent years trying to avoid. The ache, the memory, the longing. But that's where the healing begins, because the soul doesn't want to be fixed. It wants to be held. Can you hold yours? Can you close your eyes and meet yourself, not with judgment or analysis, but with a soft breath and the question, what are you still carrying? Because the loneliness you feel isn't just about absence. It's about disconnection from your truth, from your worth, from the parts of you you've buried so deeply, even you forgot they existed, but they're still here. They still dream. They still ache. They still believe in love that doesn't have to be earned. And when you finally stop running from them, when you stop trying to be fine and let yourself be real, something opens, a crack in the armor, a warmth in the silence, a flicker of recognition, because beneath the loneliness is you. And you've waited long enough to come home. Coming home to yourself isn't dramatic. It doesn't come with fireworks or a grand revelation. Sometimes it's as simple as waking up one morning and realizing, I don't want to abandon myself anymore. It's in the quiet moments, when you catch yourself people-pleasing again and pause, when you feel the sting of rejection but instead of spiraling, you soothe the child inside who's terrified of being left behind, when you stop blaming your loneliness on not being lovable and start asking what part of you you've been refusing to love. That's where the real shift begins, when you stop waiting for someone to come rescue you from the emptiness and start meeting yourself there. Loneliness doesn't just disappear. It softens when it's acknowledged. It begins to lose its grip the moment you look at it and say, I see you. I know why you're here, and I'm not going to keep pushing you away. You begin to understand something deeper, that this ache isn't a sign that you're lost, it's a signal that you're returning. Not to the world, but to the truth of your soul. Carl Jung once wrote that your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. And maybe that's what loneliness is inviting you into, not more dreaming, not more escape, not another distraction, but awakening. Awakening to the fact that you've been living outside of yourself for too long. Awakening to the lies you've told yourself to feel safe, like, I don't need anyone, or I'm too much, or If they really knew me, they'd leave. Awakening to the truth that you don't have to earn love by sacrificing your truth, that you don't have to pretend to be easy or perfect, or constantly strong just to be wanted. What if being soft isn't weakness? What if your sensitivity is sacred? What if the reason you feel things so deeply isn't because you're broken, but because you were meant to live fully alive? The kind of alive that doesn't numb, the kind that doesn't settle, the kind that doesn't apologize for needing more than surface-level conversations and Instagram love. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for what's real. But you won't find that in the places you've been told to look. Not in the scrolling. Not in the approval. Not in the pretending. You'll find it in the quiet courage to say, I deserve depth. I deserve safety. I deserve connection that doesn't cost me my wholeness. And when you start showing up from that place, not begging to be seen, but grounded in your own enoughness, everything begins to change. Because you no longer chase what doesn't see you. You no longer betray yourself just to be chosen. You no longer wait for permission to feel whole. You become the home you've been searching for. And yes, it still hurts sometimes. Yes, you may still cry. But now, there's a presence inside you. A rootedness. A quiet knowing that says, even in the ache, I'm not alone, because I have me. And in that space, real connection can begin, not because you need someone to complete you, but because you finally have enough of yourself to offer something true. And here's the miracle that no one talks about. The moment you stop abandoning yourself is the moment others start to find you. Not the ones who only loved the mask, not the ones who preferred the watered-down version of you, but the ones who speak the same soul language. The ones who are also healing, also searching, also tired of pretending, because there's something magnetic about someone who knows how to be with their own loneliness. Someone who doesn't fill the silence with noise. Someone who isn't afraid to say, I get it. I've been there too. Those people don't come when you beg for them. They come when you start becoming yourself again. You start attracting people who want to see you, not fix you. People who can sit with your shadows without shrinking. People who don't need you to be smaller so they can feel big. And slowly, connection becomes possible again, but not in the old way, not from fear, not from proving, not from trying to be good enough. This time, connection grows from truth, from resonance, from showing up with your chest open and your voice shaking, saying, this is who I really am. That's how the loneliness starts to lift, not because you filled it, but because you've made peace with it. You stop treating it like a monster and start seeing it as a signal. Hey, there's still something in you that wants to be held. That something may be your voice, your softness, your creativity, your rage, your joy. The parts of you that got muted when you were trying to belong, you start listening to them again. You give them space, and you realize, maybe this loneliness wasn't the enemy. Maybe it was the messenger. Maybe it came to show you the way back to your own soul, because underneath every lonely person is an untouched world, a universe that was never fully explored, because they spent too much time trying to be loved by others rather than learning to love themselves. And the beauty is, it's not too late. That world still exists inside you. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just waiting for your courage, for your slowness, for your yes, because you don't need to fix your loneliness. You just need to let it teach you. And if you do, you'll find that the deepest loneliness can become the doorway to the most sacred connection. To others, yes, but first, to yourself. And when you begin to walk through that doorway hesitant, trembling, maybe even skeptical, something shifts. Not all at once, but undeniably. You start noticing moments you used to overlook. The way your breath softens when you stop performing. The way your body relaxes when you're not trying to impress anyone. The way your heart beats slower when you speak your truth, even if your voice is shaking. These small moments become sacred, because they're real. And when you've lived behind masks for years, real becomes a kind of liberation. The loneliness doesn't vanish like magic, but it begins to change form. It becomes quieter, less sharp, less like a scream and more like a whisper. It begins to speak to you, not as a punishment, but as a guide. It says, you are not what they told you to be. You are not too much. You are not too hard to love. You are not alone, and you start believing it. Not all the time, but enough. Enough to stop ghosting your own soul. Enough to stop staying in places that starve you. Enough to choose love that doesn't cost you your dignity. You begin to create boundaries not to push people away, but to protect the sacredness of your healing. You begin to rest not because you've earned it, but because you exist. And that alone is enough. You begin to choose slowness, depth, solitude, not as a way to escape the world, but as a way to truly meet it, to meet yourself. Carl Jung believed the shadow, the hidden, unseen parts of us was not bad or shameful. It was simply unintegrated, and maybe loneliness is part of that shadow. Not evil, not wrong, just unacknowledged. A part of you that never got the love it needed, so it learned to ache instead. But now, you're ready to offer it something else. You're ready to sit with that ache. Not to fix it, but to befriend it. To stop being afraid of it. To listen to what it's trying to say. And when you do, something miraculous happens. You stop fearing silence. You stop running from stillness. You stop craving empty validation. And you begin to feel something deeper, something ancient and soft and strong rising from within. Belonging, not the kind handed to you by others, but the kind you reclaim from within. The kind that says, I know who I am, I trust who I am, I belong to myself. And that is everything. When you belong to yourself, even the loneliest nights feel different. They don't lose their ache completely, but the ache becomes a companion, not a curse. You sit beside it. You light a candle instead of a screen. You breathe instead of perform. You place your hand on your chest and remember, I am still here, I am still whole, even in this. And it's in those quiet moments when you are finally completely with yourself that the healing becomes real. Not because everything is perfect, not because the world suddenly understands you, but because you finally understand you. You don't need to explain yourself anymore. You don't need to shrink or bend or perform for love, because you're no longer outsourcing your worth. You've come home, and the version of you who was once so afraid of being alone has become someone who treasures their own company. That doesn't mean you stop needing people. We are wired for connection. We are born for it. But now, you connect from overflow, not from starvation. You don't tolerate crumbs because you've tasted fullness. You don't chase attention because you've learned to see yourself. You don't cling to those who drain you because you've chosen to pour back into you. And in this space of self-belonging, something beautiful begins to bloom. Peace, a soft, steady peace. The kind that doesn't need to be loud or proven or posted. The kind that lives in your breath, in your bones, in the way you walk into a room without needing to be anyone but yourself. And suddenly, that deep loneliness you carried for so long becomes something else. Not an enemy, not a flaw, but a doorway you walk through to find yourself. You realize now, it wasn't here to destroy you. It was here to guide you, to wake you up, to bring you back, to remind you that you were never meant to live a half-life in the name of being accepted. You were meant to feel, to be, to love with your whole being, even if that love begins with you, especially if it begins with you. And if you're still in the ache, if you're still in that quiet place where the loneliness feels heavy, breathe. You're not failing, you're just waking up. And waking up hurts sometimes, but it's also the beginning of everything beautiful. So many people live asleep, not because they're weak, but because somewhere along the way, they were taught that feeling deeply was dangerous, that longing was shameful, that asking for connection meant you were needy, that being fully yourself, sensitive, intense, wildly human was somehow wrong. And so they numb, they distract, they armor up. But you didn't. You found your way to this moment. Through all the noise, through all the pretending, through all the heartbreak, you've dared to stay conscious. Even when it hurt, even when the silence was loud, even when no one clapped for your healing. That is courage. You may not have chosen this journey, but you're walking it now with open eyes and a trembling heart. And that matters, because there are people who will never do this work. People who will never sit with their pain, never learn to hold their inner child, never look loneliness in the eyes and say, speak, I'm listening. But you are, and that makes you rare. It makes you powerful. Not in the way the world measures power, but in the way that actually matters, in your capacity to be real, to be honest about the ache, to not sugarcoat it, to let it break you open instead of shutting you down. That kind of vulnerability is sacred. And it's that sacred vulnerability that will slowly begin to rewrite your life. You'll notice it in the way you speak, less edited, more honest. You'll notice it in the way you love, less frantic, more whole. You'll notice it in the way you choose less to avoid loneliness, more to protect your peace. And as you begin to embody this way of being, the world around you starts to respond differently. People who only liked your performance will fade. Let them. People who recognize your truth will lean in. Let them. You don't have to force anything anymore. You don't have to fight to be seen. You simply become what you always needed. And in doing so, you begin to receive what you never thought possible. Love that feels like exhale. Friendship that doesn't require shrinking. Safety that lives in presence, not performance. And on the days when the old ache returns, and it will, you'll greet it like an old companion. Not with fear, but with tenderness. Because now you know. It's not a step backward. It's just a reminder to come home. Again. And again, until home is no longer a place outside of you, but a feeling you carry wherever you go. And when that feeling takes root, when home becomes something you feel within rather than chase, without something inside, you begins to soften. You don't rush to fill the space anymore. You don't panic at the silence. You don't chase the person who turns away. Because you no longer abandon yourself to be chosen. You sit, you breathe, you stay. You realize that the loneliness that used to consume you was never asking for a crowd. It was asking for presence, yours, and maybe for the first time you're giving it, not through self-help routines or perfectionist rituals, but through something far more honest. Your attention, your care, your stillness. You're beginning to speak to yourself the way you always wanted someone else to. I'm not leaving. I hear you. You make sense. It's okay to feel this. I'm proud of you. And as you do, the deepest parts of you, the quiet ones, the forgotten ones, the scared ones, start to breathe again. They begin to believe that love is possible, not just from others, but from you. You stop living for applause and start living in alignment. You stop chasing the noise and start honoring your own rhythm. You stop apologizing for being the way you are and start trusting that your sensitivity, your depth, your quiet ache were never problems. They were portals. Portals to empathy, portals to real connection, portals to a version of yourself that doesn't need to be fixed, just remembered. You realize that healing isn't becoming someone new. It's unbecoming all the things you became just to survive. It's peeling away the layers of should and must and not enough that were never yours to carry. It's returning to softness, to honesty, to you. And once you taste that, truly taste it, you can never go back. You may still feel lonely sometimes, but now you know what it means. You understand it's not emptiness, it's your soul inviting you inward. It's the call to be honest, to be still, to reconnect. It's a doorway to depth, and you've learned how to walk through it. So let the world be loud. Let others keep running. Let the noise keep spinning. You've found something quieter, something real, something worth keeping. Yourself.